Continued cold in the east and warm in the desert southwest. Welcome back to Meteorology Lab, and thanks for joining. This is the map for this morning showing the minimum temperatures. Let me clear off this overlay, and we'll get a look at that so you can see that this is for this morning. And we're seeing a lot of 50s and 60s down in South Texas and 50s in the desert southwest, so things are above normal there. But as we typically see with these slightly northwest patterns, got a lot of cold air up to the north. And just how cold that air is, we can look at temperature anomalies. This is the GFS temperature anomaly for, let's see, yeah, that's going to be for midnight, about 5 hours from now. And you can kind of see the extent of the cold air coverage, and it's actually British Columbia that's getting the most severe of that. Not so much Alberta and Saskatchewan, and that's kind of important because that can help focus exactly how far west or east the cold air will be coming out of Canada from. Also looks to be pretty cold there across the northeast U.S. And those temperatures are running about 10 to 14 Celsius degrees below normal. And this is a look at the thickness. We can analyze the chart this way. And before I do that, I wanted to show you what's going on up in the Yukon. I don't know if you can see those temperatures there. Got a lot of minus 30s, and I guess the coldest I have right there is 38. That's going to be in Dawson. That's getting way down there. So why are we not seeing that on the thickness? You know, you would think that with minus 40, minus 30, minus 40, you'd see a big thickness pool over the Yukon. And the reason we don't have that is because the thickness of that cold layer is not all that great. So if I switch over to the soundings and look at the Yellowknife sounding right here, there's what the sounding looks like. So very narrow, very shallow layer of cold air, and that's topping out right here at about 850 millibars. That's about 5,000 feet above the ground. And above that, temperatures are about 14 to 15 above Fahrenheit, 15 above zero. If we bring that adiabatically down on the ground, that's above freezing. So that's one reason your thickness charts are pretty important, because they can help factor in the warmer air aloft. And if that cold Arctic air mixes out, that's going to affect the intensity of your polar outbreak as it moves south. Let's take a look at a couple other soundings. Fort Nelson up in northeast British Columbia, also showing some very shallow Arctic air, topping out at about 3,000 or 4,000 feet above the ground. And above that, just your standard moderate intensity polar air. But the areas that are below freezing or below normal, that's going to be in the central and southern part of British Columbia. We'll see if I can bring up those soundings. This is going to be Kelowna, located right here, and you can see, looks like we've got a pretty good chunk of polar air right in here. So this is a little deeper. It's not so much this very shallow Arctic air, but it's more of a deep, rich polar air mass. And you can see average temperatures through there about minus 10 to minus 15 Celsius, which is about single digits Fahrenheit, and that's topping out at about 10,000 feet. So this is actually where we're generating a lot of the polar air that's going to move into the western and central U.S. over the next couple of days. They've got some very good snow cover there, radiating away some of that heat. And let's check on the conditions there in British Columbia. Wow, that's pretty cold there in those valleys and through here. Got a lot of minus 5 and 3 and 5, and even Vancouver 27 with a north wind coming out of there. So this is helping to generate a pretty good cold front down in Oregon, where we have snow falling right there at Portland and Salem. Can kind of outline that area through here. So that's where we're looking for that frontogenesis we talked about a couple of days ago. Elsewhere around the U.S. in the southwest, you can see those warm conditions. 71 there at Phoenix, and you can see the average winds through that area. They're kind of out of the southwest. So we're going to expect to find a little bit of ridging in through here. Conditions in Texas showing north wind, kind of a divergent pattern, which is associated with a surface high. And you can see the surface front is all the way down to the Rio Grande and possibly south of Monterey. So pretty far down there in Mexico. So that brief period we had of southerly winds, that didn't really do much to erode this polar air mass. We're just kind of reinforcing it as these north gradients keep building in. Similar situation in the southeastern U.S., but the cold front has kind of stalled from about Jacksonville to south of Pensacola, Apalachicola, and we're looking at 70s and 80s in Florida there, and of course very cold in the northeast U.S. and Ontario there. Got some freezing cold west wind blowing through the Great Lakes area, and this kind of demarcates maybe a weak reinforcing shot of polar air, kind of a weak cold front maybe through this area here, from about northern Michigan through western Quebec. So we can kind of put that together on the thickness chart. Let me see if I can find that. There we go. Okay, time to lay down those fronts, and we'll draw this first one through the Atlantic, coming on into Jacksonville and then just off the coast to Monterey, kind of like where we showed that on that surface analysis. And then we pick up the new front through Oregon right there. Probably going to be a warm front, and then southward into the Pacific, where it's starting to get active. And you can see the core of the polar air, mostly centered on Victoria Island and through the central and northwest territories, and a separate little code pool over James Bay into Musoni and North Bay. So we're looking for the new shot of polar air to be developing in this area. So we're going to see height falls and probably some pressure rises there over the next couple of days. And we were going to check out cross-sections a little bit, so let's do that. Let's draw a cross-section through this frontal zone through here from about Las Vegas. Maybe I'll go a little further south, maybe from Palm Springs to about Banff National Park in Alberta. So I've got the data loaded up here. I know this is kind of hard to read, but I'll try to keep this simple. The important thing to keep in mind here is the bottom part down here. That's going to be the surface. This is about 18,000 feet, 500 millibars. And this is about 40,000 feet, 200 millibars. And keep in mind that this area, very strong packing of potential temperature, isotopes, that's going to be your stratosphere. And the boundary on the bottom part of that is going to be the tropopause. And these brown lines, these are going to be isotopes. These are potential temperature lines where they're very packed together. Of course, that's going to signify a front. So in this case, we're looking for the frontal zone to be kind of in this area, just on top of that tightest packing right there. So let's go forward and we'll kind of break that down. First of all, we have to set up the location of the cross-section. And I'll let you see what I'm doing here. I'm going to go from Palm Springs to Banff National Park and generate that. Then I'll go to products and I'll pull up my time section. So we're starting out for right now. So basically the surface is right here. This is California. This is going to be about Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia, roughly. So you can see where that front is located right there. It looks like maybe a little upper level front through here over California. So maybe that's helping to support that subtropical jet that we see right up here. But the main polar front jet located right over that frontal zone. See how it's right above that? It's kind of a reflection of the strong slope that we have here, the strong horizontal temperature gradients. And that's given us our polar front jet located right there. So, active front right there. Let's see what happens over the next 24 hours. So it's located right here, and you're probably going to see that slip southward here, and the jet's going to go with it. So we can see some changes there. And actually looks like some cold air developing right in here, because I can see those values drop quite a bit there in British Columbia, so that might be a new cold surge starting to come south. So it looks like our front kind of washes out through here, and then it kind of redevelops right here. This is going to be about 24 hours, no, about 36 hours right here. We're going forward in time. And that's going to be about 48 hours, and it looks like our front's going to kick out this way, and you can see the polar front jet above that, and some more production of cold air out in this region. Those potential temperatures down to 264, that's about minus 10 Celsius, about 14 Fahrenheit, and that's going to be even colder at the surface. So this is going to be a large, very intense era of polar air production there in the western U.S. And that gets towards the end, about 48 to 64 hours. In the front, well to the south, and you can see the polar front jet disappearing here off the corner. And above that, this is all going to be a large upper level low. It's going to be a large barotropic low, a polar low kind of centered over this area. So it should be cold there in Washington or Idaho, Montana, and British Columbia in a few days from now. So let's run our charts through the forecast. And before I do that, I wanted to pull up the upper air chart. We haven't really done much of that. This is the 500 millibar heights and vorticity. I'm going to pull this up to where you can see it at the bottom. Let me get rid of the watermark so you can see the time. There you go. So down here, if you want to read the hour, there's the forecast hour and there's the forecast time. So let me start this forward. Okay, so right now we're starting out with height falls in this area here where we have the polar air production. You can see the northwesterly flow across Canada, bringing cold air southward. And there's that ridging we were talking about in the southwestern U.S. where we have warm temperatures in place. Okay, going forward in time, see that troughing right in here, the height falls, that's the polar air developing, and that's going to be kicked southward by this jet in northwestern Canada. Now we move forward to 72 hours, strong northwesterly flow, this trough here signifying very intense, very well-developed polar air, probably trailing back here a little bit too. So we're going to see a cold front moving southward into Texas over the next few days into the central U.S. And moving forward, let's see here. We get into more of a zonal pattern. So you can see that right there. A little bit of a change there. So systems should start coming more out of the Pacific. But then we start picking up northwesterly flow again towards the end of the forecast period. One thing that is kind of interesting here on the GFS, you can see that little blob, the little slug of high vorticity here in Nevada. That's on December 25th here, so maybe a bit of a storm system in the western U.S. on Christmas Eve. This is 240 hours out, so this is starting to get within the range of possible accuracy. So this might pan out. Can't really completely discard it like I would with a CFS forecast out 350 hours. So anyway, that's going to come out into the Great Plains around the day after Christmas, and we may see a cold front associated with that, maybe some precip And, of course, on the back side, we could see some snow. Okay, so we'll go ahead and finish this off with our forecast, and I'll get the chart centered here, and just say hello to everybody in chat. And we've got quite a crowd here. You can see Ron, Mark, Sue, and Sarah, and Jason, Alexi, and hopefully I didn't miss anybody here. But yeah, Ron, hello to you all, and Jeff. So here's the picture we have right now. Cold front well to the south, and there's our Pacific system starting to come together in Oregon. And then we run that forward to 24 hours. Tomorrow morning, you can see the system developing there in Oregon. And then by tomorrow night, here's our front starting to make its move into Nevada and California. So things are starting to sink south here. Here in the Great Plains, we're going to be seeing a little bit of warm air advection starting to pick up over Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas. And of course, with warm air advection and a moist air mass, that's going to mean a lot of cloud. So we're probably going to see partly to mostly cloudy conditions across Texas. For our webcast on Friday, going to be looking like this. Things start to become very dynamic as that system crosses the Rockies. And where exactly is that front? We have to remember to look at the thickness. So down in this area in California, probably going to be looking at it right there. Then it gets a little hard to find in Arizona, but I'm going to go with something like that. And there we go. So it should be a pretty warm day on Saturday in Texas, and I would not be surprised to see 70s and 80s here. See, that's a very good downslope pattern. See a westerly wind coming off the higher elevations, plus that's the warm sector. That's going to be warm weather here. And north of that, some very good upslope and isentropic lift. And by upslope, you see the gradient here. We have an easterly gradient south of this high pressure area. There up here is almost definitely humid, so that plus some lift is going to generate that cloud, and isentropic lift will do the rest. Dynamic lift and that kind of thing. So Saturday, I did it again. Click the model forecast, or the sounding. So for our webcast on Saturday, our slowest webcast of the week, we're going to see that norther coming through Texas. There it is right there. A little bit of a downslope in South Texas, hanging on right there. But elsewhere in the Great Plains, very strong cold air advection starting to take root here. Then the system is moving through the Midwest and up to the Northeast. This is on Saturday, and then on Sunday, the system will have cleared most of the southern plains, and then we're looking for probably some weak showers in the southeast U.S. And I remember yesterday we were looking at the instability, and we didn't really see any. So it should be kind of a quiet line of showers moving through that area on Sunday. For Monday, just kind of partly cloudy and very cold across much of the country. Cold polar air pretty much covering this entire region into the southwest U.S. And for Tuesday, kind of the same picture. Here's that cyclogenesis in Canada, kind of giving us a reprieve as far as the cold outbreak. And here's another Pacific system starting to come together. See, thickness gradient picking up there in Nevada. So we're going to watch that over the next, the middle part of next week. Our webcast on Thursday is going to look like that. High pressure dominating most of the central U.S., kind of reinforcing the cold air we have over Texas. Now we start to get up to Christmas Eve. So Christmas Eve is going to look like this. Western U.S. system coming together with pretty quiet conditions elsewhere in the east and central U.S. So we're going to look for some snow showers in the higher elevations there in Colorado and Utah. And then Sunday, Christmas, it comes out into the Great Plains. This will probably be another warm day for Texas in this area here. The surface front's going to be looking like this. So by Monday, we should see that sweeping through Texas, and there it goes. Boom. Very good blast of cold air the day after Christmas. And GFS going for some precip there. Let's see. That's actually trending more towards what the Canadian model had. I remember they were developing a lot of freezing rain and wintry weather across this area, up into Chicago. Let's see what the Canadian model does for that. So we'll go to the Canadian GDPS model and wait for that to load. Hopefully that doesn't kill my bandwidth. If it does, we should be good to go here in just a minute. Okay, so we're loading up the frames here. And the forecast hour we're looking at is going to be probably in the 200-hour point. While it's doing that, let me just take a quick look at the soundings across Texas, because we were looking at that opening video. You remember that area of stratocumulus? Let me show you that opening clip. Yeah, you see that right there? I don't know how many of you watched these opening time-lapse segments, but it's kind of good for looking at what's happening aloft over Texas and kind of tying that in with what the charts are showing. And you can see two layers here. You see there's kind of like a thin layer moving right to left. That's a lot lower. That's some stratus. And that's in the polar air. And then above that, you can see a thicker layer coming out of the frame towards you. So that's moving west to east. So that's going to be above the frontal surface. So this is what we're going to be looking at on the sounding. And let me pull that up for Fort Worth. So whatever we have up at 3,000 feet, that's probably going to be in this layer right here. That's the higher overcast that you saw. And you can see that westerly wind right there. And then above that, or below that, down at about 1,000 feet, showing southeasterly this morning, but we're a little bit south of there, so we were probably catching a little bit more of a northeast to easterly flow. I don't know if Shreveport shows that. Let me go over to Shreveport, see what they've got. Because we're about a third of the way to Shreveport. Maybe a fourth of the way, but yeah, very weak winds right there in the lower levels. And then very similar picture to Dallas-Fort Worth, up at about 3,000 to 4,000 feet there. So that's the polar front, the top of the polar front, kind of hanging tough across Texas, and probably not going to erode that until Saturday. So let's check on our Christmas forecast on the Canadian model. Let's see, what window did I have that in? Yeah, there we go. Let me go back to the 18th. This is what it had for the 18th. It just had some trailing snow showers across Kansas and Missouri. Then it developed a little bit of, what is that, purple? That's sleet in Kentucky on the 18th. Then let's go up to Christmas. See what the Canadian model is doing. Dang, we're not there. The last frame I have is 240 hours. 24th at 12Z, so, oh well, we're going to have to wait till tomorrow for that, but, so, there we go. Anyway, I appreciate you all watching. I think we're probably done for now, and I'm sorry, guys, I forgot the building blocks again. I'll try to do that tomorrow. I got caught up looking at all these cross sections, so I'll get this fixed anyway. Thanks. I appreciate your patience. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow night, and thanks for watching.